Good morning, everyone. This is our People Matter show. Today we have a very special guest, Michael Marks, who is the Chief Operating Officer for Allied Partners. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Miguel. How are you?
I'm doing great. Why don't we start over with I seen your journey. I mean, you have an amazing career in real estate, asset management. Why don't you take us a little bit about your experience? I know that you have worked with a lot of interesting people that we'll talk about it later on. But take us to your journey. How is it that you got involved in real estate, asset management, please?
Sure. So it was funny. I studied finance in college, and right after college, I actually went to law school. And I saw my buddies who majored with me in finance that they were out making money. This was 2004. The golden years of the Wolf of Wall Street days, right? And everyone was making quick, easy money. And so I was like, spend $50,000 a year to read books all day, or let's go into finance. So I jumped into finance and worked on Wall Street for about a year and made a lot of money. But it wasn't a lifestyle that I enjoyed. So my dentist at the time was in an office park in White Plains, New York, and he said, "Hey, they're looking for an assistant property manager." The pay was like $45,000. I had made the year before almost 400 grand as a 22-year-old. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. And so I became an assistant property manager at Colliers International. And within a year, I was promoted to asset manager with a portfolio in New York City and Fairfield County, Connecticut. And that was my start in real estate. For me, finance was non-tangible, right? It was all speculative. In real estate, it made sense. You put a value on an asset, you see the asset, you touch the asset, you work the asset. And that was something that was exciting to me. And that was 25 years ago, and I'm still here doing the same thing. So yeah, that's how it started. It was a dentist saying assistant property manager. It's almost the lowest job in the industry, but it was a great experience.
Amazing. I saw throughout through your experience, you also work with the Soros Foundation, the Open Society Foundation for the Soros Foundation. Tell us about your experience working with a very famous hedge fund manager and entrepreneur in the world of finance. Tell us about your experience working in this foundation.
So the foundation was my client when I was with Colliers, and I was brought on to develop their global headquarters in New York City. And shortly after delivering beautiful building, it's called the Argonaut Building, 224 West 57th Street, flagship asset, corner 57th and Broadway. And I developed it on their behalf. And shortly after the development, they asked if I would be willing to join. They didn't have anyone who managed their real estate. At the time, they had approximately 23 assets around the world, offices around the world, and they were looking for someone to help make that a more robust portfolio. At the time, they were basically acquiring or leasing buildings everywhere they wanted to do business. This was an incredible opportunity. One, to be part of the expansion of the foundation and everything that foundation stood for, politically or not politically. It really does great work around the world. And I'm happy to share some of the amazing things I saw them do. But to experience doing real estate outside of what we know, outside of New York, outside of New Jersey, outside of Connecticut, was really an opportunity I couldn't not take. And I did transactions 33 countries, Myanmar in Asia, Brazil, Bogota, Colombia, Seoul, South Korea, Singapore, and to travel to all these worlds and really see that the language we speak here about real estate and what it takes to build a project, underwrite a project, it translates across every culture and across every language, which was astonishing to me. Like, our fundamentals of a deal here in New York are the same fundamentals of a deal in Myanmar. Myanmar, a country that doesn't have electricity 14 hours of the day, we still could figure out how to negotiate a deal. It was really, really, really incredible. And then to be part of a group where the budget doesn't really matter, you're able to do some really spectacular things that you normally wouldn't do when you're running a P&L and worried about. And so I was able to develop some incredible offices for us that were really, at the time, pushing state of the art. There are very few companies who were doing what we're doing, Google, Facebook, but money doesn't matter to them either. But then for us, we were kind of doing a very similar thing. And it was really, really an exciting time, exciting opportunity for me to be part of that.
So the very interesting when you talk about real estate and you talk about 30 different countries, which country got the most attention for you in regards to flexibility, in regards to easiness to be able to do transactions?
Wow, it's a really interesting question because every country had their nuance, right? I would say one of my favorite was Singapore, but Singapore is not that easy to do business with, right? The government of Singapore is a very, I mean, it's for all intents and purposes it's totalitarian government, right? They have full control over everything that's done there. But in terms of the professionality of the people, the attorneys are incredible, the brokers are incredible, the builders are incredible. Everything there really is top of the line, incredible. But the bureaucracy exists, right? Versus we can say, let's go to a country like Colombia in Bogota, much easier place to do business, absolutely. And they have amazing professionals, but it's all relative. So I actually would probably say from an overall ease, Colombia was probably the best. Brazil is very bureaucratic, very difficult. A lot of the Seoul, very difficult. London, of course, the UK is difficult. So probably Bogota, to be honest. Yeah.
So let's go back into the US. New York is a very competitive market, but New York has changed a lot since COVID. There was a lot of talking about commercial real estate going away and a lot of concerns about hedge funds that were, in the hands of a lot of property, commercial property in the city. And it seems that in the last couple of years, all of these big corporations they came out with ideas to basically convert many of these buildings into residential to increase supply. Tell us about what do you see in New York right now? What's the trend? Do we have to worry or not about all of these big institutions with holding, thousands of doors or buildings in New York that they're converting into residential? Are they converting or not? I mean, are they actually doing it? What's the status on the inventory, commercial wise, residential wise? What do you see the future going in New York? Tell us more about it.
Well, we own 5 office buildings in New York, and we're full, right? And we are not the Class A super towers like One Vanderbilt. We're probably Class B and Class C buildings. They're old buildings, institutional buildings, but with real history behind them. That's really what our niche is, and we try to do value add and see what we can do to add that. According to the brokerage community, New York this quarter has seen the greatest increase in occupancy that we've seen in the last 3 years. That's promising. Absolutely. That's great. I mean, we have an office building at 568 Broadway that we're partners with, and we're very, very bullish on leasing it up. For the last 3 years, it's been almost vacant. It's amazing flagship retail on the ground floor, but then it's about 350,000 square feet of office building that we need to fill up. And very close to announcing a very big deal with a huge national company taking 80,000 square feet. And we're pretty excited by the end of this year, we'll have filled up the remaining square footage. When you have a building that is special, for whatever that means, a One Vanderbilt is special. Our property at 568 Broadway is special in Soho, incredible asset, incredible corner. I think those are leasing up. It's the mid-block C buildings that always ran at C-class buildings that always ran at, let's say, a rental rate of $50, $60 a square foot, that are having a hard time because Class A buildings are now going to be renting at $80 a square foot with huge concession packages. So really, what is the niche for these Class C mid-block, small windows, hard utilization floor plates for the tenancy? And I think that is a reality of a problem. Not to mention the debt market, which we're experiencing right now. We're in the middle of refinancing 2 loans. And everyone's doing the same thing. When your loans are going from 3.25% up to 10%, the rent rolls never have any chance of covering that sort of jump. And so the reality is we're going to have to come out of pocket or decide that the building isn't ever going to reach a value that it was once and potentially walk away. Now, we are not taking that position. We are refinancing, and we're going to have to put up a huge interest reserve to cover that difference between the rent and the new interest. But we're bullish on the market, right? And we see all of our sites to have the ability to make the turn. In
But
terms of conversion,
sorry, Michael, you still see an influx. You still see demand higher and increasing in the next few years for commercial property then, for rentals.
so office, you can buy an office building in New York City today for $250 a square foot, which is including the fee, including the dirt. which is probably an 80% discount of what it would take you to actually build. Right. And so that's real. I mean, I was offered to buy 235 East 42nd Street. I didn't buy it. Someone else bought it, and it's up for a conversion now to resi. But it was the former Pfizer headquarters in next to Grand Central Station, and it moved for $250 a square foot, less than the value of the land, right? And it will be converted to condos. It will cost hundreds of millions of dollars to convert it, I think. We're not in the conversion business, but maybe it'll be a successful project. But when you pay pennies, when you pay 20 cents on the dollar, I guess you're willing and able to take some risk on it. So it's the play. A lot of these office buildings will need to be raised, or they'll need to be converted. There's no place for them now. For the new super tower or class A plus office building, I think that market will continue to exist. JP Morgan's back in the office full time. Everyone at Bank of America, everyone is back in the office full time. So I do believe that it will be, I do believe, the city's coming back for sure.
Michael, I mean, it seems that you have a lot of experience. I've seen your track record in acquisitions and selling and buying properties and residential, especially on the commercial side. What has been some of the challenges? Can you share with us what's been maybe one of the most memorable challenge that you had in regarding to acquisitions? Any experience that you can share with us?
Of course. I mean, the fun of buying a building, whether it's residential or commercial, it's exciting, right? And to find a deal, one is exciting. It gets your blood pumping, of course. Like, oh my God, I found this opportunity. What can we do with it? What is the upside? What is the downside? What are the operating? And to build a strategy around an asset from start to finish is incredible. For me, the biggest project I ever developed from the dirt, from the ground up, was for Soros in Berlin. And to identify the dirt and then to work with architects on the design, so a property is built for purpose, is like being a parent and watching something be born and come to life. And so for me, that was really exciting to work with the users of what is exactly they need to make sure that you get everything done the right way. Underwriting the investment, right? So working with our fund managers over at the fund to understand the cost of the money, to understand where we're going to shop the money to. Are we going to use, we were developing it and then going to occupy it ourselves. So we could do low cost capital. We could go to an insurance company and get 2% for our money. Are we going to self-fund it? How are we going to do it? Like that is awesome. And then you have the creative part, right? Okay, what's it going to look like? And what do we want from natural light? And it's Europe. So Europe is super pretentious on all of these certain things. That is exciting. But to sit with the head of a hedge fund, Soros Fund Management, and understand how much we make on our own money that's invested, and talk about the value of going outside to a New York Life or to a Guardian Life who would underwrite our lease to ourselves because it's a guaranteed lease and it's not rated, but it's as good as rated, right? In terms of cash, assets on account, was super exciting. And we actually ended up deciding to self-fund because what we didn't want at the time of the development was a development partner. We didn't want someone who was involved with the decisions we were making in terms of budget. And then the decision was subsequently upon substantial completion and occupancy, we would then pull our equity out, which was also super exciting from a negotiation perspective and figuring out what's the best rates we could get for pulling out really our own equity and comparing it to, again, what we funded. So finding a deal, making it work. And then for resi, I did a bad deal. I did a bad deal 2 years ago on a residential project in Connecticut. I had a 1031 exchange. We had sold a property in Florida, and I had to move the money in 15 weeks. I didn't identify the asset before the sale, and so I quickly did a transaction. I did all my underwriting, and I said, "Okay, we're not going to cash flow, but we'll cover." And so I was like, "Fine. At least I wasn't going to have to pay the capital gains. Everything was going to work out." Close on it, and I had probably within the first 3 months about 80,000 in capital that I hadn't underwritten. And yeah. And these are high-end condos in Stamford, Connecticut. Didn't think about it. And did we lose money in the deal? Of course not, because my capital gains were higher. But like, it's just, you need, no matter how many times you do a deal, and I've done, I don't know, 60 deals, you can always make a mistake. And this was not a big deal. This was an $8 million deal, but it was enough to whack me in the end, because you just get caught up in it, and you just kind of you miss a simple thing, Miguel, like like a capital budget.
Yeah, we all have those experiences, that oversights. Allied Partners is a interesting company that how many years have you been with them already?
So I joined Allied Partners 7 months ago. Allied Partners was a landlord for the City University of New York, and I was negotiating a deal on behalf of the City University of New York as their executive director of real estate. Um, and at the end of the negotiation, the CEO and chairman of Allied Partners said, "Mike, you're on the wrong side of the table. I need you on my side of the table." And so 7 months ago, I left my tenure at the City University, and I joined Allied Partners as COO to oversee all of our business lines, which we have a bunch.
Now, Allied Partners is mainly an asset management company, right?
So we're owner and yeah, we own and we manage. Exactly right. So we manage 53 um as an asset manager properties, and then we own another 8 properties, basically New York and Florida.
So, I mean, managing assets is always interesting, especially with all of these changes. And I assume every building has different terms and different conditions. And how are you managing? What type of, I mean, are you doing anything innovative to manage all of these properties? Anything that you consider unique in the management world that you guys are doing to try to, to try to be prepared for any type of, especially with the climax today that is going on? What are you different? Anything?
So we really consider ourselves the white glove service. So we are that bespoke manager for our clients. And we have, I would say, the greatest buildings in New York, 220 Central Park South, right? The highest price value penthouse in I think in the country, but at least for sure in New York. We have the new Steinway Tower. We have some of the most incredible assets, 50 of them across the city. And we really consider ourselves that white glove bespoke provider. We really, really, really try to go, we not try, we go above and beyond for our assets to make sure that they're getting the state of the art response, the state of the art in terms of oversight. Now, we're not technology driven, right? So a lot of the competitors are saying, sure, go ahead, go on an app, do what you need to do, and we'll respond. That's not what we do. We're there, and we still believe in the human touch. And for us, that's what's differentiated us from our competitors, right? There are the First Service, they're the ACAMs, they're the Douglas Elements. They may have 20, 30 times more properties and keys that they manage, but none of them as prestigious as ours. And really, it's because we believe in that human touch. The other day, I was meeting with the chief engineer of 220 Central Park South, came into the office, and he's in a three-piece suit, dressed to the nines, right? And I said, is this how a chief engineer typically dresses? Because when I was picturing a chief engineer, I'm picturing a guy in a onesie with grease on him, making sure the boilers are working correctly. And he said, Mike, at our buildings, this is how we dress because I'm client facing. I want the clients to know that their mechanicals and their systems are running at 110% every day. So I'm dressed like this because 3 days of the week, I'm forward facing with the clients in the building with the team. And he goes, the way you present yourself and the way you walk into the building is how you'll be received, right? That's the difference between what Allied does versus another company, where you'd see a chief in Timberlands and a work shirt and a Carhartt jacket, right? We do take it above and beyond. We want people to see us, touch us, know that we're available, and really deliver that state of the art service. And that's really our niche. We only manage 51 buildings in the city, and 51 building is a nice sweet spot for us. Are we looking to grow? Always, but we're looking to grow with the right asset, with the right ownership and the right asset to make sure that it fits our need and we fit theirs.
What's the future looking is looking for Allied Partners in regards to, are you guys going to continue acquiring? Are you looking for opportunities? What's the future looks like? Are you guys trying to right now put on hold? What's the future looks like?
So if you're not moving forward, you're moving backward, especially in a climate where interest rates are like 8, 9%. So if you're not learning to grow, you're just losing. For us right now, we're looking at development. Some of our sites are prime real estate and probably not being used for their highest and best use. And so we see a huge opportunity now to take advantage, even though interest rates are high, to take advantage of the future market. And so, for example, in New York, we have an incredible site on Bryant Park that we think is prime and ready for development. What the highest and best use is, we're still working on that, right? Is it a speculative office building? Is it residential? Is it potentially mixed use? We're not there yet, but we see that as an incredible opportunity for development. Similarly, in Miami, we have an incredible asset in Miami that we also feel is, we know that highest and best use is a residential building, condo. And so we're working through those emotions to understand how to underwrite it. What would be our return? Do we want to bring in a JV partner? What's the cost of a construction loan and all of those things? But for us, really development. I think now is as good of a time as ever. I wish the cost of capital was lower, but now is as good of a time as ever to take the work that's been done over the years and bring it to fruition in terms of creating something new.
Nice. Very nice. So let's change a little bit gears into more about on a personal level. I mean, you've been obviously now you have a lot of experience. You become one of the leaders in the industry now. So in the mentorship side, do you have a mentor? Now, can you share a little bit about how important has been the mentorship for you, for others to, and do you recommend people to have a mentor?
You can learn as much as you can in college, and you can learn as much as you can in high school or trade school, whatever the route you take. Mentorship and learning from someone else who has done this before is the greatest way to be successful, right? And I've had mentors my entire career in every position that I've been in, who have molded me, right, for the work that I'm doing and that I've taken away and allowed me to advance in every position that I've moved on. There's been a level, and I've learned from the people who've taught me before. My first mentor is my father. No question. He taught me. My father is a retired school teacher from a city school, was never a businessman, but he taught me what it took to be a good man, a good husband, and a good father. And to me, I think that's priority number one. Before business, obviously, these are what is necessary for me. And then from a professional perspective, my first job, again, was an assistant property manager. And my partner, Julio Mio, still works at Colliers International, still a very good friend of mine, is still the head engineer. And he was my partner, right? I was learning the business and being called to crazy nonsense calls. And he was is a very experienced in the field guy. And he told me everything I could learn about being front facing with a client when problems exist. Again, my first day on the job, I'm wearing a suit and we get a call that one of our buildings is flooded. And Julio is wearing he puts on his big galoshes and his wetsuit, and I'm in a suit, and he's like, Mike, you don't need to come down and check out what's going on here, but I needed to. Like, in my opinion, this was my portfolio. I had to understand, and Julio taught me all of the nuances of mechanical systems, HVAC systems, how to read a blueprint. I didn't learn any of this in college. I was a finance major. I learned trading and dividends and interest rates. And Julio taught me, and I was there for 7 years, really taught me how to deal with clients, how to speak the language of a building and really get to know it. I had someone above me. I had a managing director of asset management above me, but that wasn't the person I learned from. I learned from Julio, who really taught me everything I needed to know about being in that sort of residential management, commercial management business. I give him a lot of credit, and he still works with me today on my assets in Connecticut that I own personally, that I gave you that example about. When I left to go to Soros, this was a completely new environment for me. Maybe I oversold my abilities a little bit. We all do that, but I was very much not. And it takes someone to believe in you, to give you that opportunity to move on. And the current president over there, Benifer is her name. Her and I developed a relationship. At the time, she was the head of our Asia department. And we were talking, and she said, Mike, I want to build something in Asia. And I want to relocate to Asia. And so we started talking about what does that look like? And we decided Singapore because in our eyes, Singapore is Asia light. They speak English. You could drink the water. It's really connected. It's a friendly enough place to do business. And so we decided on Singapore. And she said to me, Mike, I trust you to lead this project. Go to Singapore, make it happen for me, right? Find the people to do it, make it happen for me. So did she teach me about real estate? No. Did she teach me about what we did as a company? Absolutely. I learned so much from her, from what was our mission as an organization. But what she did as a mentor was give me the trust to deliver. She allowed me to create a budget. She allowed me to find the professional. She allowed me to go to market and find the right location. Do all of those things. So from a mentorship, the ability to be trusted is as important for me in that instance, at that moment in time. It was as the ability for me to learn, right? Because did I make mistakes? We all make mistakes. Even with a mentor, we'll make mistakes. But to be empowered and trusted is something that she really, really gave me. And so from a mentorship perspective, I do consider that a mentor, not in the fundamental way of teaching me the ropes, but she did teach me the ropes by basically saying, you're in the deep end of the pool, learn how to swim, because I trust that you could swim. And I will always be forever indebted to her, because subsequently from that, I traveled the world and I did some incredible work through her mentorship, or through her trust.
So it's funny as I'm listening to you. I have a very similar story. When I was young, I was given that opportunity. I was living in Mexico, and they said to me, "Go to Spain, open the market. We trust you." Didn't have much experience, but they trusted me, and I just went there and did what I had to do. But I'm going to ask you another question that leads me to precisely to this story, and I'm pretty sure that you might relate to this. What was that one decision, one tough decision throughout that process that you feel it made you a better leader, a better entrepreneur, a better executive? Remember that story? Do you have one?
I do. I do. And actually it's multiple instances that led to who I am. Like who I am as a leader and as an entrepreneur. Again, a lot of my growth was at Soros. So I'm going to give a lot of examples over there. It was really where my career grew, especially from a leadership perspective. I ended up, before I left, I was overseeing a global team of nearly 40 people across 30 countries. And so it was a big, robust team that was very spread out. But I was in the office, and we were just starting with COVID. And I was set up to be the head of the COVID response. And considering you have 30 locations around the world, the different government restrictions were different everywhere. And so we were really working hard to create a policy that would be fair and right and in accordance with all the jurisdictions where we were located. And so I was building a team around this COVID response. And as we were building the team, we brought in someone from Asia, someone from Europe, someone from Latin America, and we were doing this from different roles. Like, so we brought in an operations guy, we brought in an HR person, right? And then I added to the team the guy who runs the mailroom in New York City. And I was questioned, why would you put the guy from the mailroom in New York City on this, I would argue in my career, probably the most important committee that I've ever been part of, right? The reopening of our global organization. And I said, to me, it's very simple. This is a man who showed up every day during the start of the pandemic and still shows up every day. Well, we're all at home, huddling in place, making sure that we don't get sick and our families don't sick. He's risking his life. We all learned that that's not true, but he's risking it to come in and make sure that we get our mail, right? Something that we all take for granted every day. And he's seeing what life is like in New York. He's seeing what life is like in business. And I said, we all need someone who's on the front line. We all need someone who isn't thinking about the high level decisions, who's just there to be part of this working committee. And so when I made that decision, I asked them to be part of it. Everyone's perspective of me as a leader changed, right? Because everyone was thinking, okay, we need the managing director of this department, the CEO of this department, the president of this department. We didn't. We needed the guy who ran our mailroom. And the insight that he brought to that committee not just from his role, but as an African American man living in New York, as a family man, as a father with 3 kids in school, it really helped put things into perception that none of us would have seen. I was up in Connecticut in my big house with my big property, living very comfortably, not worrying about interacting with people. And this is a guy who was doing it every day. And it really helped frame to me, and I think others, what that response was. And from then on, they talk about inclusivity. I don't sign up for a lot of that, but I do believe as a leader, being inclusive with your team and the people you're leading is the most important part. Leaders have followers. A manager is not a leader. A leader creates a strategy and has followers who believe in their strategy and take that strategy forward by including the mailroom guy. My strategy was really inclusive. That was so easy. It was sold right away. I mean, literally, the company took this strategy and we moved forward with it. And for me, that's the best example, or for me, is of what leadership took. And I've taken that and subsequently in multiple roles since leaving Soros in my way of thinking, right? So, mine is a bad deal in Connecticut. Like, I really try to bring in as much advice from different perspectives to create the correct strategy to move forward. And I think that's my biggest talent as a leader and as an
And
entrepreneur.
sometimes you do have to think outside the box, and that's where your entrepreneurship comes, right?
Always, always. What you see as a diamond, if it was a diamond, everyone would see it as a diamond, right? Like, Miguel, we all do this, right? You see an asset, you're like, this is a great opportunity. But if it's this great, why am I the only one interested in it? Right? Like, this is the question every buyer wants. Even if you're not an entrepreneur and you're buying your house, you're always guessing, did I pay too much? Did I do the right thing? Because there's always these questions about what's right. And as an entrepreneur, you're always questioning yourself and you're always wondering, am I making the right decision? Are the decisions I'm making right in the long term, short term, or what are you going to do? And for me, you are better with the people you surround yourself with, right? And so I'm very lucky here at Allied. I have an incredible team at Allied, young, aggressive, entrepreneurial professionals who really want to push the envelope and make things happen. And it's incredible to sit in the room with these younger guys and hear their thoughts and hear their strategies about how things can go, and give them some experience of where things haven't gone right and play it off of where they think things can go. Really, 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 it's awesome. It's awesome.
So let's move into team dynamics. Seems that, I mean, you promote a lot of, you help young kids to maybe, go up in the ladder. And how are you fostering effective team dynamics and communication? What are you doing to have your teams efficiently working and delivering on results?
Yeah. So, there's a generic saying, my door is always open, right? Like, and so I actually have a sign on the front door of my office that my door is always open. Unfortunately, now it's closed because I'm in a meeting, but come back later. Right. But otherwise, my door is always open. I do believe that fostering communication is the most important part. We live in a world where people prefer to text, right? Like, and that to me is not real proper communication. I really prefer the human interaction. And so I've been like, as a company here, we text a lot. And I've been trying to get people to understand that let's talk, let's meet, if we're going to be on a call, let's make sure the cameras are on so that we're seeing each other face to face. This helps develop communication. When I started here at Allied, I immediately instituted a formal weekly leadership call with the entire operations team so that everyone can come. There's no preset agenda, right? I don't lead the meeting. All I say is basically, good morning. How's everybody doing? Let's just share. And we did our weekly meeting yesterday. They usually last about an hour. Yesterday went for 2 hours because everyone had a lot to share. And the value of sharing, it's a small team here. Our whole corporate team here is about 11 people. Is the value of sharing is the bookkeeper was sharing something she was working on, and that prompted ours to give feedback on something. People has a tendency to silence. It's just easier to silence. I'm not going to say force, but when you create an environment that communication is being promoted, it really gives the entire team the opportunity to participate. And again, like I said before, Miguel, I totally believe that the more people involved, the better the result is, because we all come from different backgrounds and different environments, and we all perceive and see things differently. And so the more input we have, the better decisions we're going to make as a team. So for me, the regular scheduled meetings, this idea that the door is always open, and then this idea that we're always cross-pollinating our work, right? So I'm the COO, but I also review P&Ls every month, right? I have a CFO, but I still, but I still want to see our P&Ls. I want to see how we're doing. I want to see where we're going. We have the head of HR, but I'm still involved with their hiring, and I'm still involved with the recruiting, and I still do the interviews, right? So we're all still part of all of the work that we're doing. And I just feel like that helps foster this communication. And it also gets everyone feel that they're part of it. So like the the operations guys have nothing to do with the development project in Miami, but we share with them the development project in Miami. And we hear and they know what we're doing as an organization, and they're excited about what Allied is doing. That's also important, right? Because you want people to be excited about the firm and our objectives and where we're going and what our hopes are for the future, right? That can only happen through communication. So for me, that's the best. I also believe that we need to have the best people in the roles, right? And so a lot of the work that I'm trying to do is make sure that we're promoting from within and then we're also allowing for continuing education. Like we have an incredible assistant controller who has the ambitions of being a CFO one day. And I said to him, I need you to go get your CPA, right? I'll help you pay for it, help you study it, give you the time that you need to do, help promote within, help develop him as a professional. So that in the future we can benefit from him. For me, I think I need a CPA as a CFO, right? And so we're years away from him being there. But that investment in our own people, I think pays off, pays off tenfold. Yeah.
Absolutely. So in today's world, everyone talks about technology, AI, and all of these things happening around the world. I think all of the industries in general, not just the real estate, but all of the different industries are evolving pretty fast because technology and AI. How are you balancing innovation and tradition? I see that you are very traditional man, family values. So how are you balancing innovation with traditional aspects of real estate business? What are you doing to try and you told me already a little bit about you still have that human touch, but on the innovation side, are you doing anything? Are you balancing anything?
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, you have to evolve, right? I mean, the future is definitely AI, and I will happily say that I'm a big fan of the Chat GBT. It really does help me understand what we're tackling and how to. It's an incredible reference. It's like to me, it's Google on steroids, and I've only adopted Chat GBT as a tool in the last 6 7 months, but I really think it's amazing. In terms of technology, we are evolving. I mean, we have to evolve, right? And as New York becomes a more non-business friendly environment between all the local laws and all the things we have to do. Insurance is getting more and more difficult. We are having to use technology as a resource to do that, right? So we're about to roll out an opportunity where we do use technology to review insurance. To do it manually, considering we have 7,000 insurance policies, is impossible, right? So we are working with an AI firm that will allow us to use AI to review insurance certificates to make sure that the limits are correct, that the bindings are correct, that they're being that it's the correct policies for the right coverage and for the right values. AI is the only way to accomplish that on that sort of level. And so we're working with AI with platforms that will help us do that. Similarly, people as users want to use technology to make their lives easier, right? And so from an interaction, from a client perspective, we do have that technology interface in terms of work orders, paying your rent, paying your bills, all of those things that we need from a payee perspective. Technology is still the way. No one's writing checks, right? And very few people are, using bill pay. So we're still using a lot of technology and other companies to help leverage that. From a security perspective, also, we just made this decision in terms of oversight of rolling out new cell phones, and the new cell phones all have this new built-in AI technology as well as MDM technology that allows us to see what's being done on corporate given phones so that we make sure, because we had an issue a few years ago where one of our representatives misrepresented to a client facing. So now we're having to just be a little bit more aware of doing. So we literally just finished negotiating this package with Verizon and a company called Smarsh to help us basically have that sort of security from a technology perspective. This is similar technology you would have on your computers, but now we're rolling it out into the handheld devices as well. But yeah, I mean, technology is key, and and we always do need to evolve. We also, for the first time, we're not big enough for a chief information officer or a chief technology officer, but we're about to partner with an organization that provides partial chief technology officers. So we're going to have a part-time CTO who we're bringing in now to basically advise us on what we need from a technology perspective. And I'm super excited about this opportunity because I don't have it. Like, I don't have the expertise. I don't have the knowledge. So I think bringing in that subject matter expert, right, who will work with us for 20 hours a week as a partial CTO is really going to benefit us as an organization to foresee what we need to do in the future.
It's awesome. On a personal level, you're a busy guy. You guys have a lot on your plate, and as a leader in your organization, what are you doing to motivate yourself? What keeps you focused and energized? What's your number one motivation?
I call myself a deal junkie, right? I love, I love doing deals. I love finding deals, whether it's for Allied, for myself, for friends. For me, that's exciting. Do I like downtime? Yeah, sure. We were on a cruise last week, but it's not like I don't have the ability to sit back, put my feet up and relax very much. It's just not in my nature to do that. So I'm always trying to read up on what's new, get involved in things. I sit on the board of a charter school in Brooklyn. My wife and I started a foundation, an education-based foundation in the Dominican Republic. Like, I'm always trying to do things that keep me motivated. I mean, having 4 kids is enough to keep me busy, but I like to stay excited. I have Allied has a bunch of businesses that I'm going to oversee. I have a bunch of other businesses that I'm invested in. And so for me, it's about knowledge, it's about learning, and it's about keep moving forward. In the end, 4 kids, I worry about paying college tuition and paying for 2 weddings. I have 4 kids. I have a 25-year-old and a 21-year-old and then twin 10-year-olds. So that's always part, and I have an expensive wife, and so these are always things that need to be considered. But in the end, for me, I want to leave a lasting impression for myself, right? And so, and I'll give a quick story. Spending 8 years at the Soros organization, I really learned about philanthropy, and you can build a building, and you can put your name on the building, and that will last forever. But for me and my wife, what we discussed after learning all about philanthropy was the best way to live forever is to change someone else's life, right? And by changing that life, you've changed potentially their family's life forever, right? So we started a foundation. It's a U.S.-based foundation, but all of the money goes down to the Dominican Republic, and it's
For
about
you.
promoting education, right? And so when you're able to get in Dominican Republic, after middle school is not required, right? It just happens if you choose to do it. And so what we did is we really are working hard to make education more accessible. And if you can break that cycle of poverty for one kid, you've broken it down for their heirs, right? You've broken it in perpetuity, right? So a maid daughter, unless she goes somewhere, will be a maid, right? But what can you do? You could take that child, you can get her a college degree, and now maybe she's a banker. And now you
Right.
change the cycle for her child to maybe be a banker also, right? So that's really how I think I'll live forever, right? Because my foundation made it possible for her to do that. And if I can live through that change, that to me keeps me motivated and keeps me excited. Also, being a mentor myself keeps me excited. The minute I started here at Allied, I started our internship program, and we tapped some incredible students from Baruch Business School here in New York to join our firm as interns and potentially stay on after graduation to really give that same opportunity to others. Right? That keeps me excited.
That's nice. Very nice. Congrats. I have to ask this question. Did you had a chance to actually meet and talk to Mr. Soros himself?
2 times.
Good times. What was the impression?
And so he won't remember it. I will always remember it. 2 reasons he won't remember it. Mr. Soros is an older gentleman. And for him, I was probably not impactful enough as he was to me. But so one of them was in passing. We were hosting him and our entire board at the building. And as the head of real estate there, I always made myself front and center because I was head of real estate and facilities. So my team was delivering on the event, which was the board meeting. And so I always made sure that people knew I was there from a management perspective, if anything needed to be said. And I had a good relationship with his security team, with his chief of staff. Even I had numerous conversations with his wife. But I had never really had a conversation with him. So as he was walking into the building, his head of security introduced me to him. And so I said, such a pleasure to work for you. It's really a pleasure to help with the foundation and its objectives. And he looked at me with kind of a blank stare, to be honest. He looked up at his head of chief of staff, and his chief of staff basically gave him a little insight of who I was. And he took my hand and he patted it on the top and said, "Thank you for what you do." Didn't say my name. Could have gotten a name out of him. And said, "Thank you for what you're doing." And so for me, contextually, I'm not sure he really knew what I was doing. I mean, I was the head of real estate, right? There was only 2 leaders above me before you got to him, but but it was still very cool. And then the second interaction was really a family matter that they had, and they needed some advice on, and I gave some advice on a family matter. And for that, I got to thank you, Mike, which was about as good as it's going to get from him. His incredible age. I mean, I think when I left, he was 87. The man was still active and making decisions, and it was really incredible to see.
Great. I had to ask that question. Maybe we'll find a way to share this with him. But lastly, but not least, but I think that your journey has been amazing. I think that your dad must be really proud of you, what you have accomplished, and I love the fact that you have that motivation to help kids and empower kids to change their lives. But I have to ask this question. Last question for you is: so, what would you tell young Michael Marks 30 years ago, with all of the experience that you have now? What would you tell him?
Besides the obvious buy NVIDIA, I would say take more risk. So I will say my father, as I mentioned, is still my greatest mentor. But as a teacher, didn't understand risk and didn't really take risk. This was a guy who bought a house with cash because leverage was something that was unheard of, right? So he saved until he could afford to pay for it, right? And when it was time to buy a car, he would wait until he could buy the car that he could afford, and he would do it. Smart. I'm not saying it's not smart, but be more risky. Like, I look back at some of the opportunities that I had at 24, 25, it's very young in the business of what could have been bought. And I see that it's 10x now. Some were winners, but some were losers, but many would have been winners. I mean, I had an opportunity to invest very, very early stages in a cannabis business, and I passed on it. And that business has over $100 million valuation now. I could have gotten in on it for 300 grand as as a third partner. I mean, but you're risk averse. I was a young man with a family, and you're trying to make these decisions that are stable. And I learned that from my dad, right? Make decisions that are stable, make decisions that in the long run won't risk you. But I think risk is good, right? And there's a saying, scared money won't make money. And
Yeah.
I think risk is good. And I wish I would have taken more risk. And I think maybe I would advise. I was actually out on Saturday at a cigar club in the Bronx, and I met this young kid, 23 years old. He's a currency trader at Societe Generale. And I said to him, "You have a wife?" He said, "No." I said, "You have kids?" He said, "No." I said, "Take risks now." I said, "You have a mortgage?" "Nope." He still lives with his parents. I didn't count. I don't know how much money he makes, but he's probably doing quite well. I said, "Take the risk now, because if you fall on your face, get back up and try again. You've got nothing to lose." And I really do believe in that. I wish I had taken that advice myself, taken more risk. Yeah. Now is as good of a time as any for anyone who can do it. Yeah.
Michael, thank you. Thanks for the time. I think that whoever is listening to this or viewing our podcast, I think they're going to relate a lot. Myself, I relate with some of your stories. So I appreciate the time, your wisdom, sharing everything that you did with us, and especially being open to really share. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This was the People's Matter show. We'll see you next time. Thanks.